The galaxy was vast, a swirling sea of stars and mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Humanity, once confined to its tiny blue planet called Earth, had grown far beyond its origins. Centuries of exploration, technological leaps, and alliances with alien species had transformed humans into one of the most influential forces in the cosmos. But power often breeds jealousy and fear. In the year 2847, humanity stood at a crossroads. After decades of careful diplomacy, they had earned their place among the Galactic Council, an assembly of advanced civilizations that governed interstellar relations. Yet not everyone welcomed them with open arms. Some members of the council viewed humans as reckless upstarts who didn't deserve their rapid rise. To these critics, humanity's ambition seemed dangerous, even threatening. J-Min stepped out of the sleek spacecraft, his polished boots clicking softly against the metallic surface of the landing platform. He adjusted the collar of his formal uniform, a dark navy jacket adorned with silver insignias representing Earth's United Federation, and exhaled deeply. This mission would test his skills as a diplomat more than ever before. Beside him stood Hygiene, his trusted assistant. Her sharp eyes scanned their surroundings while her fingers hovered near the tablet strapped to her wrist, ready to access any information they might need during the upcoming negotiations. They were on Xiron 7, a neutral planet chosen for high-stakes diplomatic meetings due to its strategic location and impartial governance. The towering spires of the Galactic Council headquarters loomed ahead, glimmering under artificial sunlight created by orbiting satellites. It was a breathtaking sight, but neither J-Min nor Hygiene allowed themselves to be distracted. They knew why they were here. Allegations had surfaced claiming that humanity had secretly developed weapons technology far beyond what the Council permitted. If true, such actions would violate sacred galactic treaties, designed to maintain peace across star systems. As they approached the grand entrance, guards stationed at the gates nodded respectfully, but kept their hands close to their weapons. Tension hung thick in the air. Inside, delegates from dozens of alien races bustled about, exchanging hushed whispers and suspicious glances. J-Min squared his shoulders, determined to prove humanity's innocence. "This is going to be tough," Hygiene murmured quietly, leaning closer to J-Min. "I've analyzed their patterns. Several key members are already predisposed against us." "I know," J-Min replied calmly, though his jaw tightened slightly. "But we're prepared. We have evidence showing our compliance with every regulation. Let's focus on presenting the facts clearly." Hygiene nodded, her expression unreadable but resolute. She had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, poring over documents, cross-referencing data, and anticipating potential arguments. Together, she and J-Min made a formidable team, one driven by logic, strategy, and an unwavering belief in humanity's right to thrive. The hearing chamber was massive, filled with rows of floating platforms where representatives sat surrounded by holographic displays. At the center of the room stood a circular stage meant for speakers addressing the council. When J-Min ascended the steps to take his position, all eyes turned toward him. Murmurs rippled through the audience, some curious, others hostile. Ambassador Vraxtar, a towering reptilian figure with shimmering green scales and piercing yellow eyes, watched J-Min with undisguised contempt. Known for his xenophobic views, Vraxtar had long opposed humanity's inclusion in the council. Now, he leaned forward eagerly, as if savoring the drama unfolding before him. Representative J-Min of Earth intoned the council's moderator, a neutral AI programmed to oversee proceedings impartially. "You are here today to address accusations regarding your species' alleged violation of galactic law. Please present your case." J-Min cleared his throat and began speaking, his voice steady and clear. He outlined humanity's achievements since joining the council, emphasizing their commitment to peaceful coexistence and adherence to regulations. Using visual aids projected onto the chamber walls, he demonstrated how human advancements aligned perfectly with approved guidelines. His presentation was thorough, leaving no room for doubt, or so it seemed. But just as J-Min concluded his remarks, Vraxtar rose abruptly, interrupting the session. "Enough!" he bellowed, his deep voice reverberating throughout the chamber. "Your pretty words mean nothing. We have proof, undeniable proof, that you've been lying to us. A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber as Vraxtar activated a hologram, displaying classified schematics purportedly belonging to Earth's military division. The designs depicted advanced weaponry far surpassing anything humanity had publicly disclosed. Gasps echoed around the room, and several delegates exchanged alarmed looks. J-Min frowned, confusion flickering across his face. "These documents are forged," he stated firmly. "I assure you, we've done nothing wrong." The galaxy was vast, a swirling sea of stars and mysteries waiting to be unraveled. Humanity, once confined to its tiny blue planet called Earth, had grown far beyond its origins. Centuries of exploration, technological leaps, and alliances with alien species had transformed humans into one of the most influential forces in the cosmos. But power often breeds jealousy and fear. In the year 2847, humanity stood at a crossroads. After decades of careful diplomacy, they had earned their place among the Galactic Council, an assembly of advanced civilizations that governed interstellar relations. Yet not everyone welcomed them with open arms. Some members of the council viewed humans as reckless upstarts who didn't deserve their rapid rise. To these critics, humanity's ambition seemed dangerous, even threatening. J-Min stepped out of the sleek spacecraft, his polished boots clicking softly against the metallic surface of the landing platform. He adjusted the collar of his formal uniform, a dark navy jacket adorned with silver insignias representing Earth's United Federation, and exhaled deeply. This mission would test his skills as a diplomat more than ever before. Beside him stood Hygiene, his trusted assistant. Her sharp eyes scanned their surroundings while her fingers hovered near the tablet strapped to her wrist, ready to access any information they might need during the upcoming negotiations. They were on Xiron 7, a neutral planet chosen for high-stakes diplomatic meetings due to its strategic location and impartial governance. The towering spires of the Galactic Council headquarters loomed ahead, glimmering under artificial sunlight created by orbiting satellites. It was a breathtaking sight, but neither J-Min nor Hygiene allowed themselves to be distracted. They knew why they were here. Allegations had surfaced claiming that humanity had secretly developed weapons technology far beyond what the Council permitted. If true, such actions would violate sacred galactic treaties, designed to maintain peace across star systems. As they approached the grand entrance, guards stationed at the gates nodded respectfully, but kept their hands close to their weapons. Tension hung thick in the air. Inside, delegates from dozens of alien races bustled about, exchanging hushed whispers and suspicious glances. J-Min squared his shoulders, determined to prove humanity's innocence. "This is going to be tough," Hygiene murmured quietly, leaning closer to J-Min. "I've analyzed their patterns. Several key members are already predisposed against us." "I know," J-Min replied calmly, though his jaw tightened slightly. "But we're prepared. We have evidence showing our compliance with every regulation. Let's focus on presenting the facts clearly." Hygiene nodded, her expression unreadable but resolute. She had spent countless hours preparing for this moment, poring over documents, cross-referencing data, and anticipating potential arguments. Together, she and J-Min made a formidable team, one driven by logic, strategy, and an unwavering belief in humanity's right to thrive. The hearing chamber was massive, filled with rows of floating platforms where representatives sat surrounded by holographic displays. At the center of the room stood a circular stage meant for speakers addressing the council. When J-Min ascended the steps to take his position, all eyes turned toward him. Murmurs rippled through the audience, some curious, others hostile. Ambassador Vraxtar, a towering reptilian figure with shimmering green scales and piercing yellow eyes, watched J-Min with undisguised contempt. Known for his xenophobic views, Vraxtar had long opposed humanity's inclusion in the council. Now, he leaned forward eagerly, as if savoring the drama unfolding before him. Representative J-Min of Earth, intoned the council's moderator, a neutral AI programmed to oversee proceedings impartially. "You are here today to address accusations regarding your species' alleged violation of galactic law. Please present your case." J-Min cleared his throat and began speaking, his voice steady and clear. He outlined humanity's achievements, since joining the Council, emphasizing their commitment to peaceful coexistence and adherence to regulations. Using visual aids projected onto the chamber walls, he demonstrated how human advancements aligned perfectly with approved guidelines. His presentation was thorough, leaving no room for doubt, or so it seemed. But just as Jae-min concluded his remarks, Vraxtar rose abruptly, interrupting the session. "Enough!" he bellowed, his deep voice reverberating throughout the chamber. "Your pretty words mean nothing. We have proof, undeniable proof, that you've been lying to us." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber as Vraxtar activated a hologram, displaying classified schematics purportedly belonging to Earth's military division. The designs depicted advanced weaponry far surpassing anything humanity had publicly disclosed. Gasps echoed around the room, and several delegates exchanged alarmed looks. Jae-min frowned, confusion flickering across his face. "These documents are forged," he stated firmly. "I assure you we've done nothing wrong." Vraxtar sneered, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Lies upon lies. You humans are nothing but deceitful parasites, feeding off our knowledge and resources. You think you can rise above your station? You dare challenge beings who have existed for millennia?" Before Jae-min could respond, armed guards stormed into the chamber, surrounding him and Hygiene. Chaos erupted as shouts filled the air. Hygiene reached for her tablet, attempting to expose inconsistencies in the fabricated evidence, but a guard snatched it away before she could act. "This is absurd," Jae-min protested, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. "What authority do you have to detain me?" "The authority of justice," Vraxtar hissed, stepping down from his platform, his tail lashed menacingly behind him. "For crimes against galactic law, you will face immediate judgment." Without further explanation, Jae-min was dragged toward a glowing portal at the back of the chamber. Hygiene screamed, struggling against the guards holding her back. Tears streamed down her face as she watched helplessly. The other council members remained silent, too stunned, or perhaps too fearful, to intervene. The portal led to an execution chamber, its walls lined with fiery conduits designed to incinerate offenders. As Jae-min was forced inside, he locked eyes with Hygiene one last time. There was no fear in his gaze, only determination. Then the doors slammed shut, sealing his fate. Flames roared to life, consuming everything within seconds. The horrifying scene was broadcast live across the galaxy, ensuring that no one could ignore the brutality of what had transpired. Humanity's representative, burned alive without trial or mercy. When the flames finally subsided, silence fell over the chamber. Hygiene collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Around her, shock gave way to outrage. News of Jae-min's execution spread like wildfire, igniting fury not only among humans, but also among sympathetic alien populations who recognized the injustice of what had occurred. For humanity, this act was more than a betrayal. It was a declaration of war. And as anger surged through Earth's colonies and fleets mobilized in response, one thing became painfully clear. The Galactic Council had made a grave mistake. By burning Jae-min alive, they had awakened a sleeping giant. The execution of Jae-min was not just an act. It was a spark that ignited a firestorm. The live broadcast of his death spread across the galaxy faster than light itself, carried by communication networks and relayed through countless star systems. On Earth, colonies erupted in outrage, streets filled with protesters holding signs bearing Jae-min's name and images of his final moments. In spaceports and orbital stations, workers walked off their jobs, demanding justice for the fallen diplomat. Even among alien populations, whispers of disbelief turned into shouts of solidarity. Humanity had been wronged, and everyone could see it. President Su'a stood on the grand balcony of the United Earth Federation headquarters, overlooking a sea of faces gathered below. Her expression was calm but resolute, her voice steady as she addressed the crowd and the galaxy beyond. Every word she spoke carried the weight of billions of lives. "Today, we mourn the loss of Jae-min, a man who represented the best of us," she began, pausing to let the gravity of her words sink in. "He was brave, principled, and committed to peace. But he was betrayed by those who claimed to uphold justice, yet chose violence over dialogue. This is not just an attack on one human. It is an attack on all of us. The crowd roared in response, fists raised toward the sky. Tears streaked down many faces, but there was no despair, only determination. President Su'a continued, her tone growing firmer with each sentence. We will not stand idly by while our people are butchered like animals. Justice will be served, not just for J-Men, but for every human who has ever been disrespected or dehumanized by those who think themselves superior. Her speech ended with a rallying cry, to arms, to unity, to victory. As the president stepped back inside, the machinery of war began to turn. Across Earth and its colonies, military installations sprang to life. Warships docked at orbital stations were refitted and armed within hours. Factories that once produced civilian goods shifted gears to manufacture weapons and ammunition. Engineers worked around the clock, ensuring humanity's fleet would be ready for whatever came next. For the first time in centuries, humanity united under a single banner, Project Retribution. At the helm of this massive effort was Admiral Dong-hyuk, a battle-hardened veteran whose reputation for tactical brilliance was matched only by his unyielding sense of duty. With gray hair cropped close to his scalp and eyes that seemed to pierce through steel, Dong-hyuk commanded respect wherever he went. He had fought in wars against hostile alien species and led campaigns that secured humanity's place among the stars. Now, he faced his greatest challenge yet, leading humanity into a conflict unlike any other. Dong-hyuk didn't waste time. Within days, he assembled a council of top strategists, engineers, and intelligence officers. Among them was Hai-Jin, Jaemin's former assistant, who refused to stay idle after witnessing his execution. Though grief still lingered in her heart, she channeled it into action. Her sharp mind and relentless determination made her indispensable to the planning process. We can't rush into this blindly, Dong-hyuk said during one of their early meetings. The council has resources we can't match. They've been preparing for something like this for decades. We need more than brute force. We need precision. Hai-Jin nodded, her fingers flying across a holographic interface, displaying maps of galactic territories. If we strike too soon, we risk losing before we even begin. But if we wait too long, they'll solidify their alliances and cut off our options. What do you suggest? Asked General Min-soo, a grizzled officer known for his blunt demeanor. I suggest we hit them where it hurts most, their credibility. Hai-Jin replied. Jae-min's execution wasn't just an act of cruelty. It was illegal. If we expose the truth about why they targeted him, we can fracture their coalition from within. Dong-hyuk leaned forward, intrigued. Go on. There are rumors, Hai-Jin explained, pulling up classified files she'd salvaged from Jae-min's personal database. Rumors that the accusations against humanity were fabricated. Someone within the council orchestrated this entire incident to provoke us into war. If we can find proof, we can turn public opinion against them. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed her words. It was a risky plan, but it offered a glimmer of hope. Dong-hyuk nodded slowly. Do it. Find the evidence we need. And while you're doing that, we'll prepare for the inevitable. While Project Retribution mobilized, Hai-Jin threw herself into uncovering the truth. She knew she couldn't do it alone, so she sought out Kyung-soo, a notorious hacker whose skills were legendary, even among enemies. Kyung-soo operated from the shadows, taking contracts from anyone willing to pay his exorbitant fees. But when Hai-Jin approached him, offering not money but purpose, he agreed without hesitation. You want me to break into the council's intelligence network? Kyung-soo asked, raising an eyebrow as they met in a dimly lit safe house on the outskirts of New Seoul Colony. That's suicide. Maybe, Hai-Jin admitted, her voice steady despite the danger ahead. But if we don't try, humanity won't survive what's coming. Kyung-soo smirked, leaning back in his chair. All right, then, let's burn some bridges. Together, they traced the origins of the misinformation campaign to a shadowy organization operating deep within the council's infrastructure. Their investigation led them to encrypted messages exchanged between high-ranking officials, including Ambassador Vraxtar. Each piece of evidence pointed to a conspiracy designed to paint humanity as a threat, a justification for extermination disguised as self-defense. But finding the truth wasn't enough. They needed to expose it to the galaxy. Using Kyung-Soo's expertise, Hygiene hacked into interstellar communication relays, planting seeds of doubt among sympathetic alien populations. Leaked documents began appearing on galactic news networks, revealing inconsistencies in the Council's narrative. Public opinion shifted rapidly, with protests erupting on planets loyal to the Council. Meanwhile, tensions escalated as humanity's fleets moved into position. Massive dreadnoughts bristling with weaponry formed the backbone of Project Retribution, flanked by agile fighter squadrons and supply ships. Entire colonies volunteered their resources, knowing full well the stakes of the coming battle. Soldiers trained tirelessly, their resolve hardened by the memory of Jae-min's sacrifice. Admiral Dong-hyuk oversaw every detail, ensuring nothing was left to chance. He studied maps of the Council's territories, identifying weak points and potential targets. His strategy was simple yet effective. Strike hard, strike fast, and leave no room for retaliation. One evening, as Dong-hyuk reviewed deployment plans aboard the flagship Eternal Resolve, he received an urgent message from Hygiene. She and Kyung-Soo had uncovered a critical piece of evidence, an abandoned space station orbiting a dying star, where experiments on human prisoners had been conducted. These experiments, funded by several council members, aimed to develop biological weapons capable of wiping out entire populations. "This changes everything," Dong-hyuk muttered, staring at the data Hygiene sent. "If we make this public, it'll destroy them," Hygiene finished, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and triumph. "Not just militarily, but morally. No one will side with them after this." Dong-hyuk nodded grimly. "Then it's time to move. Prepare your team. You're going to that station." Hygiene didn't hesitate. Alongside Kyung-Soo, she boarded a stealth cruiser bound for the coordinates of the space station. As they departed, Dong-hyuk watched from the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, his thoughts heavy with the weight of leadership. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and humanity's survival depended on their ability to fight not just with weapons, but with truth. On the horizon, the stars burned bright, unaware of the storm brewing in their midst. Humanity had been pushed to its limits, but it was far from broken. Together, they would rise or fall as one. The stealth cruiser glided silently through the void, its engines muted to avoid detection. Inside, Hygiene and Kyung-Soo prepared for what would likely be the most dangerous mission of their lives. The abandoned space station loomed ahead, a jagged silhouette against the fiery backdrop of a dying star. Its surface was pockmarked with craters and scars from years of neglect, but its darkened corridors held secrets that could change the course of galactic history. Hygiene tightened her grip on the data tablet strapped to her wrist, her mind racing with possibilities. If they succeeded in retrieving evidence of the Council's biological experiments on human prisoners, it would expose the corruption festering at the heart of the Galactic Council. But failure wasn't an option, neither for humanity nor for Jae-min's memory. "This place gives me the creeps," Kyung-Soo muttered as the cruiser docked with a hiss of pressurized air. He adjusted the settings on his hacking device, a sleek gadget bristling with wires and blinking lights. "You sure about this?" "No," Hygiene admitted quietly, her voice steady despite the knot of fear in her stomach. "But we don't have a choice." They stepped onto the station, their boots echoing softly against the cold metal floor. The air smelled stale, tinged with the faint metallic tang of decay. Emergency lighting flickered sporadically, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Every step felt heavier than the last, as though the weight of their mission pressed down on them physically. Kyung-Soo led the way, his sharp eyes scanning for traps or surveillance systems. "Keep your weapon ready," he warned. "If someone left this place intact, chances are they didn't do out of kindness." Hygiene nodded, her hand resting on the holster of her plasma pistol. She hadn't expected to become a soldier, but circumstances had forced her into roles she never imagined. As they moved deeper into the station, the silence grew oppressive, broken only by the occasional groan of shifting metal. After nearly an hour of navigating labyrinthine corridors, they reached the central archive, a massive chamber filled with rows of inactive servers and storage units. Dust coated every surface, and the air was thick with the scent of rust and disuse. Kyung-soo immediately got to work, connecting his hacking device to the main terminal. "This is going to take some time," he said, his fingers flying over the holographic interface. "These systems are ancient. Whoever shut this place down didn't bother wiping the data cleanly." Hygiene paced nearby, keeping watch while Kyung-soo worked. Her thoughts drifted to Jaemin, recalling his unwavering belief in diplomacy and justice. He had always insisted that truth could overcome even the deepest prejudices. Now, it fell to her to prove him right. Suddenly, the lights flickered, then surged to life, bathing the room in harsh white light. Alarms blared, piercing the silence like a knife. Kyung-soo cursed under his breath. "We've been spotted. Someone must have triggered a failsafe when I accessed the system. Can you speed it up?" Hygiene asked urgently, drawing her pistol. "I'm trying." Kyung-soo snapped, sweat beading on his forehead as lines of code scrolled across the screen. "Just buy me a few more minutes." Before Hygiene could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor outside. A squad of bounty hunters burst into the chamber, their weapons raised and faces obscured by helmets. They were mercenaries hired by Ambassador Vraxtar, sent to ensure the station's secrets remained buried forever. "Drop your weapons," one of them barked, his voice distorted by a voice modulator. "You're trespassing on restricted property." Hygiene's mind raced. There was no way out except through these men, and there were too many of them to fight head-on. She glanced at Kyung-soo, who was still frantically working. "Not yet," he whispered without looking up. Thinking quickly, Hygiene raised her hands in surrender, buying time. "We're not here to cause trouble," she lied, her tone calm but firm. "We're just scavengers looking for scrap. Whatever you think we're doing, you're wrong." The lead bounty hunter sneered, clearly unconvinced. "Nice try, but orders are orders. You're coming with us, or you're not leaving at all." Behind her, Kyung-soo let out a triumphant cry. "Got it? The files are downloading now. 30 seconds. Hygiene's heart pounded as she weighed her options. She couldn't risk losing the evidence, but neither could she abandon Kyung-soo. With a deep breath, she made her decision. Lowering her hand slightly, she activated a small EMP device hidden in her pocket. The pulse fried the mercenaries' weapons temporarily, plunging the room into chaos. "Run!" she shouted to Kyung-soo, firing her pistol to cover their retreat. Blasts of energy ricocheted off the walls as the two bolted toward the exit. The mercenaries recovered quickly, giving chase with relentless determination. Kyung-soo clutched the data drive tightly, his expression grim. "I hope you have a plan, because we're running out of station. We'll improvise." Hygiene shot back, ducking behind a pillar to reload. Her training kicked in, instincts guiding her movements as adrenaline coursed through her veins. They zigzagged through narrow passages, using the station's layout to their advantage. Behind them, the bounty hunters closed in, their shouts growing louder. Finally, they reached the docking bay where their cruiser awaited. Hygiene fired a final volley to hold off their pursuers, while Kyung-soo sprinted ahead to prep the ship. Just as she turned to follow, one of the mercenaries tackled her from behind, pinning her to the ground. His armored fist swung toward her face, but she twisted free, driving her elbow into his helmet with enough force to stun him. Gasping for air, she scrambled to her feet and dashed aboard the cruiser moments before the hatch sealed shut. Kyung-soo wasted no time, punching the controls to launch them into space. The station shrank rapidly in the rear viewport as they escaped into the void. "You okay?" Kyung-soo asked, glancing at her with concern. "I will be," Hygiene replied, clutching the armrest as the ship accelerated. "Did you get everything?" "All of it," Kyung-soo confirmed, holding up the data drive triumphantly. Every dirty little secret they tried to hide. Relief washed over Hygiene, but it was short-lived. As they reviewed the files during the journey back, the scope of the conspiracy became clear. Videos showed human prisoners subjected to horrific experiments, their bodies twisted and broken in pursuit of biological weapons. Documents revealed funding trails leading directly to several high-ranking council members, including Ambassador Vraxtar. It was damning evidence, and exactly what humanity needed to rally support for their cause. When they returned to Earth's fleet, Admiral Dong Hyuk greeted them personally. His expression hardened as he reviewed the data. "This is worse than I thought," he said grimly. "They weren't just trying to provoke us. They were planning genocide." Hygiene nodded, her jaw clenched. "It's time to make them pay." Dong Hyuk agreed, ordering immediate action. Using secure communication channels, Hygiene broadcast the evidence to the entire galaxy. Alien populations watched in horror as the truth unfolded, their outrage fueling widespread protests against the Council. Even some Council members distanced themselves publicly, unable to ignore the tidal wave of condemnation. Meanwhile, humanity's fleets moved into position, preparing for the inevitable clash. Soldiers sharpened their skills, engineers fine-tuned their ships, and civilians rallied behind the call for justice. The stage was set for a battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. As the stars twinkled beyond the viewport of eternal resolve, Admiral Dong Hyuk addressed his crew. "This isn't just about revenge," he said, his voice resonating throughout the ship. "It's about proving that humanity deserves its place among the stars. We fight not for hatred, but for hope." In the quiet moments that followed, Hygiene gazed at the data drive in her hand. Knowing Jamin's sacrifice had sparked something greater than anyone could have imagined. Humanity stood united, ready to face whatever came next. The galaxy held its breath as humanity's fleet gathered at the edge of Zora Prime, the heart of the Galactic Council's territory. The planet was a fortress, a sprawling metropolis surrounded by layers of orbital defenses and weaponized satellites. It was here that the Council conducted its most critical operations, shielded by centuries of technological superiority and strategic planning. But today, it would face an enemy unlike any it had encountered before. Humanity, united and unyielding. Admiral Dong Hyuk stood on the bridge of the Eternal Resolve, his flagship. Around him, officers worked tirelessly, their faces illuminated by the glow of holographic displays showing the positions of Allied ships. Humanity's armada stretched across the void, a breathtaking sight of sleek warships bristling with weapons. Alongside them flew vessels from alien species who had turned against the Council after witnessing the truth about its crimes. Together, they formed a coalition bound not just by shared anger, but by a desire for justice. "Final checks complete," reported Commander June, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "All squadrons are ready to engage." Dong Hyuk nodded, his gaze fixed on the tactical map before him. "Good. Let's remind them why humanity earned its place among the stars." As the fleet advanced, alarms blared across Zora Prime. The Council's forces scrambled to respond, launching swarms of fighters and activating defensive grids. The battle began with a dazzling exchange of energy beams and missiles, lighting up the darkness of space like fireworks. Humanity's ships moved with precision, executing maneuvers honed through months of preparation. Admiral Dong Hyuk had studied the Council's tactics extensively, identifying weaknesses he now exploited mercilessly. One such weakness lay in the Council's reliance on overwhelming firepower over adaptability. Their ships were massive and heavily armored but slow to maneuver. Dong Hyuk countered this by deploying swarms of AI-controlled microfighters, tiny drones equipped with advanced targeting systems. These nimble machines darted between enemy vessels, disabling engines and shields with surgical strikes. The Council's fleet found itself paralyzed, unable to mount an effective counterattack. Meanwhile, boarding parties clashed aboard captured ships, soldiers fighting hand-to-hand in cramped corridors. Humanity's troops proved relentless, driven by the memory of Jamin's execution and the atrocities revealed in the leaked files. Each victory fueled their determination, pushing them deeper into enemy territory. Amidst the chaos, Hygiene worked tirelessly to ensure the galaxy witnessed every moment of the battle. From a secure communications hub aboard the Eternal Resolve, she broadcast live footage to billions of viewers. Her message was clear and direct. This is not just humanity's fight. It is a fight for truth, for accountability, and for the soul of the galaxy. Her words resonated far beyond Earth's borders. Alien populations once loyal to the Council now openly questioned its authority. Protests erupted on planets under Council control, demanding reforms, or outright rebellion. Even within the Council's ranks, divisions widened as members argued over how to respond to crisis. Some called for surrender, while others urged escalation, no matter the cost. Back on the battlefield, Ambassador Vraxtar watched the unfolding disaster from his private cruiser. His reptilian features twisted in fury as reports poured into humanity's successes. How could these primitive creatures challenge the might of the Council? He refused to believe it, clinging instead to fantasies of crushing them utterly. "We must retreat," one of his advisors urged, panic evident in his voice. "Their numbers are too great." "No," Vraxtar snarled, slamming a clawed fist onto the console. "I will not flee like a coward. Prepare my ship for combat. I will lead the charge personally." His advisors exchanged worried glances but dared not defy him. Moments later, Vraxtar's cruiser surged forward, flanked by a squadron of elite fighters. Its powerful cannons unleashed devastating blasts, carving through human ships with terrifying efficiency. For a brief moment, it seemed the tide might turn in the Council's favor. But Admiral Donghyuk anticipated this move. Using decoys and feints, he lured Vraxtar's forces into a trap, a cluster of seemingly vulnerable supply ships hiding in ambush. As the ambassador's cruiser approached, dozens of hidden warships emerged from behind asteroids, unleashing a barrage of fire that overwhelmed his escorts. Vraxtar's vessel sustained heavy damage, forcing him to abandon his assault. Realizing his position was untenable, Vraxtar attempted to flee. However, Hygiene had anticipated this possibility as well. Working alongside Kyung-Soo, she remotely hacked into the cruiser's navigation system, rerouting it toward Zorath Prime itself. The ship crash-landed on the planet's surface, skidding across the terrain before coming to a halt near the Council's Central Command complex. Cornered and desperate, Vraxtar emerged from the wreckage, clutching a handheld communicator. "Listen to me," he shouted, addressing the assembled crowd of survivors and Council officials who had gathered outside the complex. "You cannot trust these humans. They are monsters who will destroy everything we have built." Before anyone could react, Admiral Donghyuk appeared, leading a detachment of soldiers. His presence silenced the crowd, his stern expression leaving no room for argument. "Your lies end here," he declared, stepping forward. "You orchestrated this war to justify your crimes. Now you will answer for them." Vraxtar sneered, raising his hands in mock surrender. "And what will you do? Kill me? That won't change anything." "It doesn't need to," Donghyuk replied coldly. "Your actions have already condemned you. Justice will be served not by us but by history." With those words, Vraxtar was taken into custody, his reign of xenophobia and hatred brought to an abrupt end. Cheers erupted among the coalition forces as news of his capture spread. The Council's remaining members convened an emergency summit, their usual arrogance replaced by fear and uncertainty. On Earth, President Su'a addressed the galaxy once more, her voice calm yet resolute. "The time has come to rebuild what has been broken. We offer peace, but only if it is built on equality and respect. No species should rule over another. No voice should go unheard." Her speech marked a turning point. Alien populations rallied behind humanity's vision, eager to create a new era of cooperation. Even former council members acknowledged the necessity of reform, agreeing to dissolve the existing body and establish a new governing structure, one that included equal representation for all species. As the dust settled, Hygiene stood alone on the observation deck of Eternal Resolve, gazing out at the stars. She thought of Jae-min, whose sacrifice had sparked this revolution. Though grief still lingered, she felt a sense of pride knowing his ideals had inspired so many. The galaxy was changing, slowly but surely. Humanity had proven its strength, not just in battle, but in its ability to inspire hope. And though challenges remained, one thing was certain. The future belonged to everyone now. The galaxy was quiet now, the echoes of war fading into memory. The battle for Zorath Prime had ended, leaving behind a landscape scarred by conflict but also ripe with possibility. Humanity's victory was not just a triumph of arms. It was a testament to resilience, unity, and the power of truth. As the dust settled, leaders from across the stars gathered to forge a new path forward. In the heart of Zorath Prime, Within the Council's former command complex, representatives from countless species convened for an unprecedented summit. The atmosphere was tense but hopeful, a delicate balance between old grievances and newfound resolve. At the center of it all stood President Suwa, her presence commanding respect even among those who had once doubted humanity's place in the galaxy. "We have shed enough blood," she began, her voice carrying strength and compassion. "This is not a time for vengeance or blame. It is a time for healing, for building a future where no one feels the need to fight alone." Her words resonated deeply, earning nods of agreement from many in attendance. Even some former council members, their arrogance stripped away by recent events, listened intently. They understood that clinging to the past would only invite further destruction. Change was necessary, not just for survival, but for progress. Admiral Dong-hyuk watched silently from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. He had played a pivotal role in humanity's rise, leading its fleets to victory against overwhelming odds. Yet he knew this moment required more than military might. It demanded wisdom and compromise. As soldiers dismantled the remnants of the Council's oppressive regime, Dong-hyuk reflected on the cost of their journey. Lives had been lost, sacrifices made, but perhaps they had paved the way for something greater. Hygiene sat nearby, her tablet resting on her lap as she observed the proceedings. She had spent weeks analyzing data, drafting proposals, and ensuring every voice, human and alien alike, was heard. Her work had become instrumental in shaping the foundation of the new governing body, the Galactic Assembly. Unlike the old council, which operated behind closed doors and prioritized the interests of select few, the Assembly promised transparency and equality. Every species, regardless of size or influence, would have a seat at the table. As discussions unfolded, debates arose over how to address the crimes committed during the war. Ambassador Vrakstar's arrest had exposed a network of corruption stretching far beyond him, implicating several high-ranking officials who had orchestrated atrocities in secret. Some called for harsh punishments, while others argued for rehabilitation and reform. Hygiene stepped forward to offer a solution. "Justice must be served," she said, addressing the crowd. "But justice is not revenge. We propose creating a tribunal, an independent body tasked with investigating these crimes and holding those responsible accountable. Let us focus on rebuilding trust, not sowing more hatred." Her suggestion sparked lively debate, but ultimately gained widespread support. The tribunal would include representatives from multiple species, ensuring fairness and impartiality. For many, it represented a chance to confront the past without letting it define the future. Meanwhile, humanity turned its attention inward, reflecting on the lessons learned during the conflict. Memorials were erected across Earth and its colonies, honoring those who had given their lives for peace. On Earth's moon, a towering statue of Jaemin stood proudly, inscribed with the words, "For those who dare to dream of a better galaxy." His sacrifice had ignited a movement that transcended borders and species, uniting billions under a shared vision of hope. President Suwa visited the memorial personally, laying a wreath at its base. Tears glistened in her eyes as she spoke softly to herself. "You showed us what it means to stand firm in the face of injustice. Your courage will never be forgotten." Back aboard the Eternal Resolve, Admiral Dong-hyuk addressed his crew one final time before disbanding the fleet. "Our mission is complete," he announced, his voice filled with pride. "But our duty continues. We are guardians of peace now, protectors of the ideals we fought so hard to defend." His words brought cheers from the assembled soldiers, though there was sadness too. Many had formed bonds stronger than steel during the war, and parting ways felt bittersweet. Still, they understood that their efforts had laid the groundwork for a brighter tomorrow. Kyung-soo, ever the rogue, chose to disappear once again into shadows. Though he had proven invaluable during the conflict, he preferred life on the fringes, a man without allegiance, yet always ready to fight for what was right. Before vanishing, he shared a brief farewell with Hygiene. "You did good," he said, offering a rare smile. "Don't let them forget why we started this." "I won't," Hygiene replied, returning the gesture. "And thank you for everything." As days turned into weeks, the galaxy began to heal. Trade routes reopened. fostering economic recovery and cultural exchange. Scientists collaborated on projects aimed at improving life for all species, while educators worked to erase prejudices passed down through generations. Slowly but surely, the scars of war began to fade, replaced by a sense of cautious optimism. Yet challenges remained. Not everyone welcomed the changes brought by the Galactic Assembly. Isolated factions resisted integration, clinging to outdated beliefs and fears. Pirates roamed uncharted regions of space, preying on vulnerable colonies, and whispers of dissent occasionally surfaced, reminders that peace required constant vigilance. Despite these obstacles, humanity pressed onward, guided by the principles that had carried them through their darkest hours. They had proven themselves capable of greatness, not because they sought dominance, but because they believed in the potential of cooperation. Together with their allies, they embraced the unknown, venturing boldly into the vastness of the cosmos. Among the stars, new stories were written, stories of exploration, discovery, and unity. Humanity's journey was far from over, but for the first time in centuries, the road ahead seemed limitless. The galaxy no longer belonged to any one species. It belonged to everyone. And as long as hearts burned with a desire for justice and understanding, the light of hope would continue to shine. The stars twinkled brightly, their beauty undiminished by the struggles of those who gaze upon them. Somewhere out there, Jamin's spirit lingered, watching over a universe transformed by his sacrifice. His dream lived on, not just in humanity, but in every being who dared to believe in a better future.